Hello and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations. Thanks for joining me today. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. Today we're making this beautiful card and we're going to be stitching. We're going to use the Spellbinders card front die. This was from May of 2001 and I never used it. It has sat over here in my pile and I said I'm going to make a card. I picked up the thread at Hobby Lobby. It was on sale and I just picked up a pack of it because the colors are absolutely gorgeous. So I die cut this out of 110-pound cardstock. I did run it through a couple times to make sure that all the little holes die cut well so that I could just take my pick here from my Spellbinders tool-in-one and go ahead and punch all those little pieces out. This is probably the most fretful thing for me, is to sit here and make sure that all of those little pieces are punched out and then clean them up. In the end, that process is totally worth it because I absolutely loved this card and how it turned out and all the colors in it. So when you start stitching, I'm using all 6 strands of my thread. You can of course pull it apart if you want to and have a lighter weight thread work on your card front. That's entirely up to you, but I'm using all 6 strands. I cut my thread length of probably about 20 inches. I'm doing big stitches here, so I needed a lot of thread. Usually, like if you're doing just a cross stitch, you might not necessarily cut great big huge chunks of thread that big, but I did about 20 inches for each strand that I did. And to secure it in the back, I just put a knot in the very end of my thread and pulled it through. Also, you don't want to start where all of the thread comes together. You want to start out in the leaf part of it if it's one of these stitching dies that has the straight stitches like this. And the reason for that is you don't want to come back up through that same place where all of that thread is. You want to go down through that because it's a lot easier. Also, you could add beadwork to this, you could add sequins to this, you could add anything you wanted to this. The only thing that I would make sure if I'm going to add beadwork to this is that I use a smaller gauge needle. My hands were freezing that day and hurting a little bit, so I used a really large gauge needle that I could hold on to a whole lot easier. And the beadwork the beads have really small holes in them, so you need to make sure that your needle is going to fit through those. So if you're going to add beadwork, like I said, just make sure that your needle will go through the holes in the middle of the bead. I don't think I could say that many other ways. Maybe I could, but it sounded like I just said that a million different ways. Oh, this is the 3rd time I have done this voiceover for this video because my files keep being corrupted, so I'm a little punchy. Anyway, we're just going to do some straight up sewing here. If you get a knot in your thread, and if you continue to get a knot in your thread might be a little dry, or it might have come twisted a little bit, and it's going to start to kind of ravel on you, and it's going to be harder to pull through. It's going to start to feel a little ratty. So just make sure that your thread is in good shape before you start. The silky threads are great for this because it's really difficult for them to knot up. They do get knotted. If you do get a knot, don't pull on it tight. You want to make sure that you take the tip of your needle and kind of pick at that area a little bit to separate all of the little strands, and then pull all of the pieces apart and it will come loose. Most of the time it's just because it's gotten wound up on itself and it's not even a true knot. If you pull it tight, it would be, but it's most of the time not even a true knot. The paper here, where I'm going back down through the same hole over and over and over, did get a little worn on some of them. And I ended up putting glue in those areas so that it wouldn't tear further, or it would hold together if it did tear. That's one reason why I'm also using 110-pound cardstock. 80-pound cardstock would not hold up for this. You could do this on black cardstock. That would be gorgeous as well. I might try that next and see how that looks. If I do that, I'll share it over on Instagram. Just because this card's so fun. And those colors were amazing. So let's go ahead and finish this card up. And there's our card all finished. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, I'm in love. I'm in love. I had a piece of kind of sagey cardstock. It's actually Stampin' Up! Cardstock, but Concord and 9th has absolutely gorgeous colors, very similar to these, that would work perfectly with this. I'm going to use my mini MISTI to align my stamp in the center of my opening here. The stamp set I'm using is an older stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and it is Thoughtful Messages, and it's going to say, "You are a good friend." And that's Lucy picking on the chair beside me. Sorry. So I'm going to use my MISTI just to align this, and I'm going to pick up the stitched piece here in just a second, just making sure that it's where I want it to be for that second sentiment. And we'll pick up the stitched piece, put our magnet in, and then ink up, and we're going to do white heat embossing with detail white embossing powder. I think sometimes we forget we have these absolutely amazing stamp sets. I haven't used this stamp set in forever, and I forgot I even had it until I was going through my inventory, that I have an Evernote that I had it, and it was exactly the sentiment that I was looking for. So there we go. We're going to white heat emboss that. I use a coffee filter to catch my embossing powder. Cleans up super easy. I can't put my embossing powder in like little containers and a spoon. I end up with embossing powder everywhere. I do a lot better with the coffee filter, and I just reuse that coffee filter until it slap falls apart. I usually shake it over a trash can if I'm using dark colors, and all the embossing powder falls off of it. I'm going to use glue to adhere all of our parts and pieces here together, and a great big ginormous acrylic block. That way I can put it on top of it, and it will make sure that everything sticks together. I am using Elmer's glue all in my little bottle here, and it's just my favorite all-around glue right now. I still do use Nuvo glue, Deluxe adhesive. I'm just out of it right now. So Elmer's glue all in a fine tip bottle like this is a great alternative, and you can find it pretty much anywhere. Over the past year I've had a hard time finding things, so I had to find some alternatives, and Elmer's glue all was one of those alternatives, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I just put it in a little fine tip bottle here that I think I got them from either Amazon or Hobby Lobby. I don't honestly remember where I got those, but I got a little box of them, and they work great. Has the little cap that goes on them. Absolutely fantastic. And I put glue on all of the parts that were sticking up on the tops of them, and then I'm going to put this on the front of our cardstock piece that we heat embossed a moment ago, and then we're going to add some gold pearls to the front of this as well, and then our card will be all finished. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I'm just going to play a little bit of music and just relax and enjoy the rest of the card.